Daniel Libeskind, architect. Well, the museum in Erbil is a very important institution. It's really the museum of the Kurdish people. And it is a story of the struggles and achievements of the Kurdish people and their history. And it's not only about the past, the catastrophes, the genocides committed against the Kurds, but it's also about the future of the Kurdish people as a people. I based the museum on where Kurdish language and Kurdish music are played. So it's a configuration really almost of the topography of the Kurdish people. But then in the center of the museum, there are two elements of the museum which meet. One is what I call the Anfal line, a space that represents in many ways the genocide against the Kurds, the genocides against, in our time, against the Kurdish people. And it's a space that is part of the story of the development of Kurdish people. Then one traverses through that center into a new space, which I call the line of freedom. Since the Kurds have been fighting for their freedom, for their nationhood, for their identity for so many generations, this new space, fully open towards the city, and the museum is located really at the foot of the amazing citadel, gives the audiences a garden which looks over the city and really tells the story of the hope that the Kurdish people represent, not only to themselves, but to the world. So it's an important cultural institution, it's an educational institution, it's a place to see the history based on memory, but also to see the wonderful works of art, of architecture, of everything that the Kurdish people produced that is so influential in our 21st century world. So it's a museum that tells a story of the Kurds. It's tell a story back and forward, and it's, I think, an important institution to give an identity, a place for the community, a place for families and kids to enjoy where they are, the beauty of that amazing city of Erbil, the beauty of the citadel and what it is, and also part of a new urban context that shows that culture is a very important part of this great historical city. Well, it picks up that history in many ways. First, in the physical sense of scale. And, you know, a museum, a piece of architecture cannot communicate with words. It communicates with light. It communicates with acoustics. It communicates with the spaces it creates, with the materials. For example, the museum has many motifs of Kurdish architecture built into it in a new way. So in terms of history, such a museum, I think, will be an important aspect of seeing Kurdistan in a new way. Not simply through the newspaper articles, through the blogs, through the media, but through a real experience of human beings, with not just their minds, but with their hearts, and most importantly, with their spirits. Well, one of the major projects which I'm still working on is the Ground Zero in New York. You know, I am the master planner of the site, which means how to create a site which is truly public, how to not just build some buildings and put a plaque, but create a sense of solidarity after this event, to show that in a democracy there is a sense of unity, and in face of these attacks it shows the beauty of New York based on the memory of New York. So I, for example, did not build in the center of the site. There are no big buildings, but I really left half of the site. It's a 16-acre site. 8 acres are devoted to public space, because I think the public space is the key for people to come to the memorial, to come not just to the surface of the memorial with its waterfalls, but really all the way down to bedrock, where we can see the slurry wall, the great foundation that I kept open so that people can see what the site is really about. And of course, at the periphery of the site, you see beautiful skyscrapers, you see the PET terminal. The project is not yet finished, because part of it is what I call the Wedge of Light, which is a new public space representing the 2 times on that fateful September 11th, 8:46 in the morning when the first tower was struck. It will be really defined by edge of tower number 2, south edge, which is not yet built, and the center at 10:28, when the second tower collapsed, is actually a center of the PET terminal, which opens at that day, and you can see the light coming in. So even without sunlight, and that was a sunlit date, that September 11th day, we will sense that there is a memory in light of New York, a memory in the space of New York. And there are many also symbolic elements which I've added to the project. The tower number 1 is 1776 feet tall. It's not just the tallest tower in the United States, but it's a tower that speaks about the Declaration of Independence. There is the buildings, the large-scale skyscrapers, stand in a gesture that echoes the torch of Liberty, which is just to the south of the site. So yes, it's a project ongoing. I think much of it is accomplished, maybe 80%, but it's not finished. So that's one of the, but I've been lucky to work in many museums, many cultural institutions. I'm building, for example, in Africa, in Kenya, in Turkana, which is where all human DNA comes from, a museum devoted to the human origins, evolution. Where do